Our top story today, humanitarian aid is slowly trickling into Gaza. More than 90 trucks carrying vital supplies like flour and baby supplements have entered southern Gaza. However, the United Nations warns the aid is insufficient to prevent a worsening catastrophe. A German government spokesperson, Sebastian Hill, criticised the small scale of aid entering Gaza, calling it too little, too late and too slow. He urged for a significant release to end the suffering. France also reaffirms its support for Israel's right to defend itself, but condemns the situation in Gaza. Spokeswoman Sophie Primas calls for a ceasefire and urgent humanitarian aid. She stresses France's long-standing position for a two-state solution to ensure lasting peace in the region. Meanwhile, according to Hamas officials, there have been strikes in Israel that have killed at least 6 Palestinian guarding aid trucks in Gaza. The strike targeted those preventing looting at the Kerem Shalom crossing. At the same time, overnight Israeli airstrikes has killed 16 people, with Khan Yunis, Deir al-Balah and Jabalia among the hardest hit areas. In another development, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has appointed Major General David Zini as the new head of Shin Bet, despite a ruling from the Israeli Supreme Court declaring the dismissal of the previous chief unlawful. This move has sparked controversy, with opposition leader Yair Lapid urging Zini to reject the position until the legal issues are resolved. We're now joined by two guests. First being Ali M. Bushback, who is an independent Palestinian researcher located in Cairo, and we're also joined by Peter Baum, who is the foreign editor of the Weekly Blitz. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the programme. Ali, I wanted to come to you first. This ongoing blockade that has been in place that has recently been eased, but was previously in place for around 12 weeks. We've seen a trickling of aid coming in to Gaza now. Are these trucks that Israel that is letting in, is this sufficient? What is the minimum daily volume genuinely needed to ease this crisis? Apologies.
Thank you, Thomas. The situation in Gaza is still totally dire in Gaza. Especially, they are suffering from the risk of famine in northern Gaza. Even in southern part of Gaza, people are also suffering from the starvation. Today, also, or the night of yesterday, Israel asked the people to displace from northern part of Gaza, and there is a huge movement to displace from Jabalia refugee camp and also Tal Zatar and Bet Hanun and Bet Lahias. There is a mass of the people though forced to leave their home and their places to looking for a safe place. About the humanitarian aid which Israel allowed to the truck into Gaza, things is not sufficient, first of all, and second, you are talking about 2 million people. They are starving and they are with a less and lack of food. So Israel also, allowing for, I guess, 9 or 10 of the trucks.
Ali, I do apologise. I have to let Peter respond. We've only got a limited amount of time. Aid groups, Peter, say Israel is only letting aid trickle through the Shalom Karim corridor. What are your thoughts on how this easing of the blockade is working? Is this aid sufficient for the reported famine that is being suffered by the Palestinian people currently in Gaza?
You know, ever since October the 7th, no more than 3 days after October the 7th, Western media and the Palestinian narrative was as follows: insufficient food, insufficient water, hospitals can't function, dire conditions for Palestinians. What you've got to do is look at the Al Jazeera reports from the area, and every time there's an Al Jazeera report, behind that Al Jazeera report there's people running around, there's fuel depots, cars going backwards and forwards. The idea of a famine, starvation in Gaza is an absolute absurdity. It's a lie. It's a myth.
Okay,
Nothing is
Peter,
further from the truth.
I do want to move on. I want to go on to the international condemnation, which is obviously become rife in the past couple of days, particularly from Europe. We're talking about the UK, we're talking about France, and we're also talking about Canada as well. France has reaffirmed its support for Israel's right to defend itself, but is and also condemns Hamas as an organisation. What are your thoughts on that? Benjamin Netanyahu has said that he claims that the UK and France and Canada are supporting Hamas in their statements. What are your thoughts?
The United Nations has a rabid obsession with demonising Israel. The only reason that the European nations have come out more strongly in this last week condemning Israel is simply because the governments recognise that they can't take the domestic opposition and protests and marches that are happening on their capital cities and in other cities in their areas week after week after week. It's an absurdity to believe that the Netanyahu will do anything other than achieve his objective, which is to destroy Hamas militarily, and he will put, as long as he's in power, he will put up with all the.
Is this sound check all right?
Okay. Thank you, Peter. I've got to move to Ali next. I want to stay on the international condemnation of the recent of Israel's actions. Ali, do you welcome these statements from these three major Western powers, or was it too late in your opinion?
The thing is better late rather than nothing. So I guess the condemnation, everyone welcome it, and I guess this is a glow of hope for the Palestinian, because the international community that it runs and that changed the mental of the international community after supporting Israel in the genocide in Gaza and permit them to kill casualties from the civilians. Totally, we are talking about 50,000, and we are crossing the number of 50,000, most of them children and women. And your guest, and he said that Al Jazeera reporting lie things about the starvation and famine in Gaza, but on the ground, and I'm in touch with the people on the ground, there is a several of people, they are really without food, and we have witnessed a lot of mobile phone footage that describing many people, they are since past 2 days without any part of food or any kind of food. So the thing is a really situation dire in Gaza. Everyone in Gaza now in hope, and there is a glow of hope after the international community change and the international community condemn Israel starvation and using food as a weapon in Gaza, and there is a several of government and diplomatic consider it as a war crime to use a food as a weapon in Gaza.
Okay, Peter, I just want to give you 10 seconds to respond to that before we move on.
It's interesting. Genocide. The Palestinian population has multiplied by a factor of 11 since 1948 and gone up by 75,000 since October the 7th. The use of the term genocide is a false narrative and is absolutely stupid for anyone of any intellect to use.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter Baum and Ali Emma Bushback, for joining us on the programme. We really appreciate your insight. We now move over to the United States.